This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, October the 6th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get the week off to a flying start. That requires your participation. So, if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue to get on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So it's not like we're going to plan some parade route in Toronto for the Blue Jays, but pretty fun weekend to open up the Division Championship Series against the New York Yankees. I was worried about the long ball. The Jays won yesterday 13-7, Vladdy with a grand slam, which was pretty sweet to see. We out-homered the Yankees in 2 games, 8-1. Outscored them, 23-8. So, yeah, it's a 3 out of 5 series. Got to go back to the Bronx now and take them on, but pretty cool start. And even if you're a casual Blue Jay fan, just to watch the rookie postseason debut of young 22-year-old Trey Savage was remarkable. It's as good a pitching performance as we've seen from anybody, anywhere in the majors this year. Talk about the pressure in front of 44,000 screaming fans, and he was lights out. Franchise record with 11 strikeouts, which is wild, and the standing O upon him being taken out of the game, which in some corners was controversial. I thought it was the right thing to do. But anyway, 5 1/3, no hits, 11 Ks. Man, pretty special stuff. And the Jays go tomorrow night in New York to see what we can see. All right. Congratulations to the lads. Team Gushu, nice win over the weekend at the PointsBet Invitational. They were out in Calgary for that particular event, so they take it. Next up is the Grand Slam of Curling Co-op Tour Challenge in Nisku, Alberta, the 14th of this month through the 19th. And tomorrow's the deadline to sign up for the early bird opportunity to buy some tickets to go to the Montana Brier coming in February next year here at Mary Brown Centre. You sign up with Canada Curling to get a chance at one of those 500 tickets before the rest of us get a swing at it on the 9th of the month. Okay, so not surprisingly, read a story in the news this morning about agriculture and some of the fallout of the very hot, dry summer. We've heard farmers talking about, the lack of water, consequently the lack of growth, the poor yield, and even something as fundamental as access to hay. So I hear some farmers say, in years past they'd be selling hay bales for decorations for Halloween, what have you. Now going to restrict the sale strictly to farmers because going at the hay twice a year is generally the norm. And you see one farmer talk about the fact they've had only 590 bales this year compared with 1,500 in years past. The trend doesn't look like it's coming back to earth insofar as hot and dry goes. So really hoping to speak with someone in the agricultural sector, hoping to speak with a farmer or two or more today about what Plan B looks like. Because they talk about irrigation, but irrigation only works if you have access to the water reservoir required. We've talked about communities and their reservoirs drying up. So this poor yield is obviously a problem for the farmers. So really, I need someone with some position of authority to tell us what they see on their property, on their farm. So a pretty severe shortage. But at the same time, good conversation with the founder of the Food Producers Forum last week. That was Dan Rubin, talking about the need to change our mindset about what we can and cannot do, what we can and cannot grow here, and when we can grow it. We've got to stop leaning in on the number of 90% of what we consume is imported, because that's simply a number reflected at the retail level, as opposed to all the food produced here, whether it be through livestock or root vegetables or whatever the case may be. Municipalities need to get on board as well. They're governing their bylaws about backyard farming and homesteading based on British law from 1947. We're not suggesting, or I'm not suggesting, that everyone's going to have a rooster living next door, or everyone's going to have full complement of cattle in the backyard, but changing the way we go about this, because if you're the grocery shopper like I am, any opportunity to reduce your cost for some of the base fundamentals is something a lot of people are leaning in on. Backyard farming or backyard gardening and or homesteading has grown in popularity exponentially for obvious reasons. Then even the community aspect, the sharing of and the bartering of. So hopefully, number one, speak with a farmer here this morning And number two, for municipalities to understand what we can and cannot do or should be allowed to do in our backyards. Also, with the world of hydroponics, you hear me talking about maybe the province should be involved in upfront investment in hydroponics to be run by private business, peppered all around the province. People always ask me about the status of the Canopy hydroponic facility on the White Hills. Excellent question. Trying to find out exactly what's going on there, who owns it, what's the status of the lease, and when the province might be able to use it to provide for low-income families, for instance, out of that particular hydroponic facility that had never grown a bud of marijuana, first and last. All right. Also read a story this morning about how disillusioned some people might be living in more remote parts of the province. And they say, not the direct quote is, sometimes, well, actually, I got it right in front of me. We don't see nobody down there. All you hear of in the news is from what's happening in St. John's. I always say the Northern Peninsula could break off, drift out to sea, and they'd not even know we're gone. There's probably some truth to that. I can't speak to it with any actual lived experience because I don't live on the GNP or smaller remote parts of the province. But your voice, what you need, absolutely welcome on this program. Shag the townies, even though I'm a townie. So whether it be conversations regarding farming and or fishing and or forestry, mining, whatever the case may be, and for some reason what has totally dropped off the radar is some of the more rural parts of the province that still have these wind to green hydrogen to ammonia for export proposals sitting in front of the government and sitting on the desks of the proponents and very little to no action on it. So rural votes and what's important, let's do it. Also in the world of healthcare and for more rural parts of the province. We'll hear various politicians talking about trying to staff up those hard-to-fill jobs, but there's a lot that goes with it. Housing and opportunity for the partners of whether it be a nurse practitioner, a registered nurse, family doctor, whatever the case may be. So we got to broaden our conversation on that front. And the vague reference to incentives to work in rural is also needs a little bit more detail. Just to get back to the captive audience that would be young men and women in school training to be any healthcare professional, from laboratory medical assistants or technicians all the way through being MDs. You hear stories all the time that one graduate or another in one school or another wasn't even offered a job. Now, NL Health Services dispels that sometimes, saying, yes, everyone's been offered a job. And we'll just take nursing, for instance. Is there a sound reason other than money why not every single graduating nurse has been offered a full-time permanent contract? That's what people want. And if you have other provinces, whether it be quietly or aggressively, trying to recruit graduates from our schools, not good enough. Same thing with the medical school at Munn. What are the job offers looking like? And I mean, things like return of service agreements. And I keep being told that we can't do that, or the professionals don't want it. Well, it's what we need. It's got to be a big part of the conversation as well. Look at the fact that any doctor recruited from outside the country has to come and work under a 5-year return of service agreement. So they have to work where we need them for the minimum of 5 years. So are we not offering every single graduate strolling across the stage at the Arts and Culture Centre to receive their diploma? Do they not have a job offer in their back pocket? And if not, why not? Maybe it's a bit more simplified than it necessarily needs to be, but anyway, you want to take it on, we can do it. All right. And in the world of healthcare and advocacy, I know that the PC's Mr. Wakeham is promising to create an independent body that would be the disabilities advocate, similar to the other advocate positions who answer to the House of Assembly. Not to Cabinet, not to the Premier, they answer to the body at full. It's overdue. I mean, the Liberals said they would do it, but have not done it as of yet. For 1/3 of the population to not have an advocate in their corner, such as the disabled community, it's long overdue. Mr. Wakeham talks about funding of some $400,000 in year one. Okay. And this is not a question for Mr. Wakeham or any particular party. Is it time to review not only the creation of this new long overdue disabilities advocate, but exactly what their mandate would be? Whether it be the general terms of systemic issues, like the seniors advocate just deals with the general issues, versus the ability to champion one particular cause or another, which I think is maybe splitting a hair. But if one advocate or another is taking on one particular individual or family's case, it does represent many more others with very similar life circumstances that the outcome can be a resolution or a better pathway forward for many. We just put a family name and a face to one of these causes and being the champion that the advocates need to be. Because sometimes I think when the general terms are spoken to, it maybe doesn't paint a clear enough picture. Because if we're talking about one person or one family, and you can spell out exactly what's going on in their world, and you put a face to the cause, a face to the name, a face to the issue, I think that has a little bit more impact with the general public. That's just my thoughts. Your thoughts, obviously, welcome on that front. Public safety. Okay. So we all know that many people in the province feel less safe. And the crime numbers coming from Stats Canada are what they are. And no hyperbole required to talk about it. Then there's a news release coming from the organization representing the RCMP. So let's see, I got to get it right. The National Police Federation. They're talking about equitable funding for the RCMP when compared to funding for the RNC. All right, let's get into some of this stuff. The RCMP serves the majority of the province. Members of the NLRCMP are responsible for policing over 55% of the population across 80% of the landmass of the province, most often, of course, in rural and remote communities. Diverse geography, access, and complex and increasing needs. Let's get into some of what people think about the RCMP. Apparently, this year, Polaris Strategic Insights did a poll out in the community. 4 of 5 Newfoundlanders have a favourable view of the RCMP. RCMP members continue to work with fewer resources. In recent years, service calls in RCMP areas, service areas, rose by 12%. Mental health-related calls surged by 70%. At the same time, the RCMP's officer-to-resident ratio has declined. Its budget increased by just 15% compared to 22% increase for the RNC. Okay, there's a pretty clear message coming from the National Police Federation. In addition to funding support, which is obviously required, whether it be for hiring more officers or more Crown prosecutors, whatever the case may be, it's also how many people are out there today that want to, are willing to, join the ranks of law enforcement. You know, we've seen an increase in bursaries for folks interested in joining the RNC. We do have a couple of graduating classes going through the churn. But in addition, you know, it's very much akin to incentives for our healthcare professionals. Are there actually the numbers of actual human beings that are wanting to join the force that are standing back because of funding from the top? I'm not so sure. But your thoughts on it and anything in the world of public safety, let's take it on. All right. Obviously, campaign time, everything becomes a political hot potato. And now it's the thought about ExxonMobil cutting some 2% of its global workforce and what that means for operations here. And we know that ExxonMobil, of course, has played a really massive role in the oil business here. The operator out at Hibernia, the operator at Hebron, they've continued to do some exploration, although exploration has fallen off the cliff in this province in recent years. So the assertion is that it's because of the current government that ExxonMobil may shift some of its resources that would be working and living in St. John's, for instance. I'm not so sure how that works, but inside the industry itself, I also hear people clamoring for Beta Nord in particular to be added to the federal government's nation-building project list. It's ready to go. It's fully in the hands of Equinor to make a final investment decision. But how would we have a politician craft a message that would suggest that Beta Nord is a nation-building project? Because is it? Possibly. There's a role the federal government could absolutely play in Beta Nord, even though all the final approvals and releases from environmental assessments have been done and they're in the rearview mirror. But how does that work? Also, you know, it becomes really quite tedious when we hear all these big reports that commissioned. Some we're allowed to see, some we're not allowed to see. But some of these big concepts of what becomes of the future of the NLC. What becomes a motor vehicle? We know it has become a bull arm. There's a full-time leasee on site now, and hopefully they're super aggressive. No reason to believe they won't be. But in the world of oil, you know, the Tories thought it was a terrible idea and indicative of the Liberals wanting to get out of support of the oil industry in full, even though I'm not so sure that's what anybody said. But where are we with this stuff? Like the equity stakes in our offshore operations, they're pretty significant. 4.9% equity position at Hebron, 8.7% at Hibernia South Extension, 5% at the White Rose Extension Project, and of course all the IP or the intellectual property held by Oilco, which, of course, is our oil and gas corporation. You know it's got to be worth something, and selling off equity doesn't mean you're no longer interested in one industry or another, because what we do not hear from virtually anybody running is how that money might be able to be reflected in debt and deficit. I know everybody wants what they want when they want it, and the campaign promises are running fast and furious. You know, people talking about cutting taxes, and everyone wants to pay less tax. I get that. But we really need politicians to understand debt and to talk about it and to not be afraid to talk about it. It's not very sexy. It doesn't put any food on the table. It doesn't reduce the cost of groceries. But people talk about what kind of world or province we're leaving for our children and our grandchildren. Well, boys, if we don't talk about that one, then the world that you hope to leave behind is going to be less than what it is today if we can't wrap our mind around what we're doing with the debt. I know people kind of get sick of hearing about that, but that's that. Anyway, let's go. Oh, yes, and of course, the Upper Churchill MOU and what that money might mean and some of the flaws inside this MOU and the information that flows from all sides, some of which is completely exaggerated. But let's talk about it. There's a confused general public out there regarding one of the biggest issues facing the people of the province. You know, issues that's going to have 50, 60-year impact. It would be super if we could get it boiled down to and ensure that we're only debating and talking and discussing factual matters, factual shortcomings, factual benefits, because at this moment in time, I guess I can only speak for me and the people I've talked to about it, confusion is much more a popular sentiment than concrete understanding of what is a hugely complicated issue. We're talking about $500 billion worth of stuff over 50, 60 years, but we're going to put it back out there if you're so inclined. Pretty much last one before we get to you. We were going to talk about some of Canadian-American relationships, and the Prime Minister's going to Washington tomorrow, and that's all about trade. Maybe I'll save some of that for tomorrow. But with the Upper Churchill or any of the drive of electricity and the need for it on the supply side and then the demand side, is people keep throwing artificial intelligence data centers out there. Had a great call last week from someone who's absolutely informed about artificial intelligence and notably the electricity, the power required to fuel and to fire up these data centers, of which is complete madness. You know, 2% of the world's power that's generated just sucked in by these data centers so that we can create these fun little videos and deep fakes. And, you know, there is some positive applications of AI. We talked electricity regarding those centers. Let's talk about water. You know, we are blessed with a lot of fresh water in this province. And how it gets utilized, of course, part of the conversation. But AI is a global issue. Let's look at some water-related numbers. In Oregon, Google, of course, they are all in on AI, as is Meta and Zuckerberg, as is Bezos and some of the other heavy hitters in this world. Oregon, Google fought to keep water records secret because their data centers were pulling so much groundwater, they actually had to renegotiate new water deals. Arizona, in drought-stricken areas, town officials literally had to halt any new developments because the water grid could not handle it. Utah, the locals are all over these AI data centers looking for transparency because they are draining supplies while the Great Salt Lake continues to shrink. The Netherlands, Microsoft's data center in North Holland guzzled 84 million litres of drinking water in 1 year. And what was going on during that year? A heat wave. In Chile, critics found Google's new center could consume 7 billion litres in a country where half the population already lives in drought-stricken areas. In Ireland, data centers now eat up 22% of the nation's electricity. That's more than all urban households combined. So yes, it's going to be helpful in healthcare using artificial intelligence and generative models and ChatGPT and creating all these videos and sharing the content and walking around with the AI-influenced glasses on. But we're kind of missing the point about how much power it takes and how much water it needs for cooling. It's remarkable when you look at the numbers. We're on Twitter or VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@VOCM.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Oh, welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one and say good morning to one of the candidates running in ward number 2. That's Brenda Halley. Brenda, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How about you?
Good. Patty, I'm calling in today to talk about sustained modes of transportation.
Okay.
Just about lessening our reliance on cars, just for the health of the environment as well as ourselves. You know, improving accessibility for public transit, you know, the frequency of the buses is something that we really need to discuss. I know earlier last year bus shelters were removed from various parts of the city. Excuse me, we didn't address the root causes, we just took down the shelters. And, we have some really harsh weather, and it's really difficult to stand out in our elements without standing in a bus shelter,
Yeah, I mean, one of the most recent reports on public transportation had a keen focus on bus shelters. I mean, we know that in some areas of the city they were removed because they became the home of drinking and drug use and prostitution and violence, and so I get that, but not every part of the city feels like that around a bus shelter. But yet the report was clear: unless we had improved bus shelters, usage is not going to go up. But at the same time, usage is up. Some of it associated with the immigrant population, some of it associated with free bus passes for low-income people living in and around town. So, anyway, I didn't mean to steal the thunder. You go ahead, Brenda.
No, it's a sheer thunder, let me tell you. I agree. Our weather is really harsh. And, having worked in the healthcare system for almost 30 years, I can remember people missing their appointments with psychiatrists, for example, which you had to wait for about 2 years to get in anyway. But, they'd go from downtown, transfer at the Avalon Mall or the Village, and go to another, route where they'd have to stand out in the cold before they'd ever get to the appointment. So a lot of times appointments were missed, so it didn't make sense for a bunch of reasons, So I think we got to get smarter about how ways we can decrease the barriers for folks. But one of the things I phoned today about specifically, excuse me, I really want to. Family of 5, my family, and we're bikers, but just engaging people to wheel, walk, or cycle. And some of the barriers to wheeling, walking, and cycling, in particular for my call today, Patty, is equipment such as helmets for kids. And so we were wanting to do this after the election, but the election, because it has moved to the 8th of October, I'm doing a helmet drive in partnership with Bicycle NL, and we're doing 50 helmets for 50 heads. There's a lot of kids that I see around that are not wearing helmets, and I don't know if it's a financial barrier, if it's a cultural thing that we don't know, but we really need helmets on heads because we only actually have one head, so we have to be careful, to protect that. So on October the 13th, the Thanksgiving holiday, at Victoria Park between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., we're going to do a helmet drive. And Patty, if people want to donate money, we can go to brendahalley.ca, and there's a GoFundMe account for that. But I also wanted to say that the local bike shops have donated some helmets. So Free Ride as well as Canary have donated helmets for this, and with Bike NL and myself. So we're going to be doing it at Bishop or Victoria Park, October 13th, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Hopefully everybody comes out. We've invited Bishop Abraham School. It's one of the schools that we identified as kids that don't have enough helmets. And, of course, Bishop Fields,
And it's the law. I will add to it the growth of popularity of these electric scooters. I mean, look, they look super fun to me, and some of them look super quick, but the number of people wearing a helmet versus the number of people not wearing a helmet, the non-helmets are winning by a landslide at this moment in time, which, I mean, I don't know how people make these decisions. I'm not in the mood to be preachy, but, bopping your head doesn't mean just the possibility for a bump. It means the possibility of a traumatic brain injury. It means the possibility of changing your life forever. So I can't believe that there's not actually a law to have to wear a helmet on those scooters either.
Yeah, absolutely. Once I get elected, is one of the things that I want to bring to the table at City Hall and see who else we need at the table. It's a funny story, Mike.
I don't know. I didn't cut her off, but anyway. Let's see here. We'll try to get to the break on time. Vicky, you're next. She's a relative of Sadie Meese. Do I know who Sadie Meese is? Is she involved with the flotilla, possibly? Anyway, let's check it on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line, you know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Let's see here. So there was a bunch of people chimed in on my comments about artificial intelligence, and some of it's kind of lame, saying, why do I hate technology? That's not it. What we're doing is trying to expand the conversation about AI as a fun tool, and it can be a helpful tool. It's going to end up being a net negative tool, I would suggest. But even things like when people talk about the dearth of critical thinking, the dearth of critical thinking. I mean, the MIT Media Lab had 3 groups to write an SAT essay, and one of them just used one of the generative models of AI like ChatGPT, another one just used Google, and the third set just used their own mind. The outcomes were crystal clear. The critical thinking loss with relying fully on AI is not going to be helpful in the long term. So I'm not suggesting that you should not use AI if it works for you individually and or your business and or your industry. Fair enough. But what we don't hear enough about is just amount of electricity sucked in by these data centers. We don't talk about the amount of water required for cooling in these data centers. I don't know how that makes anybody anti-tech, but it certainly paints a very clearer picture than just saying, oh, isn't this fun? Look at this video that I created. It only took me 2 hours, but it took me enough electricity I could have powered my home for a month. Let's go ahead and get that break and don't go away. Welcome back. Quickly before we get to the phones, if you lost your keys for your Kia vehicle around the taxation centre on Empire Avenue, they were found Sunday morning. I know who has them, so if you lost your Kia vehicle keys, we can hopefully reconnect you with them. Just let me know. Let's go to line number 2. Vicky, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
I just wanted to chat a little bit about the 6 Canadian passport holders that are currently on board the Conscience, one of the boats that is part of the Freedom Flotilla to bring aid to Gaza. 3 of those Canadian passport holders are intelligent and passionate young people from right here in St. John's. Devani Ellis, Nikita Stapleton, and Sadie Meese. Sadie Meese is a relative of mine and someone that I care about very much. And I'm asking the people of Newfoundland and Labrador to help bring her home safely. There are ways that we can do that. I know I, for one, have kind of been sitting back and watching this genocide happen because I felt pretty helpless and not really sure what it is that I could do. And Sadie and the others have inspired me to be a little more vocal in things like making this phone call to you just to help bring awareness. Again, some of the things we can do to help bring
Vicky,
people.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we get into how we can help to get Sadie home safe, where is she today? What's the status? What's she doing? How is she? Those types of things.
Yeah. So I think their spirits are pretty good, all things considered. They are just a matter of days away from, reaching the shores of Gaza, which is the mission, is to reach that shore and bring aid to the Palestinians, the innocent people that, the genocide is happening to. Before they get to those shores, they have to sail through what's called the Yellow Zone. That's the zone where the IOF has been known to be boarding these boats that are there legally. So they're being boarded illegally, and they are being detained, and they're being taken back to military facilities where we know that these facilities are known for mistreatment of the people, the innocent people that they're holding there. And I'm scared. And I feel that everybody should be scared. And again, there's things that we can be doing to make sure that this mission is successful, that they reach those shores with the aid, and that we bring these 3 Newfoundlanders back.
Absolutely.
safely
So,
and unharmed. Yeah.
do people have access to Sadie and the other members of the flotilla? And, I guess we'll talk
they
next
sure
steps.
do.
Okay.
Yeah. So Sadie and the others on the boat, the Conscience, can be tracked. I feel that that's one of the things that we should be doing constantly is tracking that boat. And you can do that very easily just by going to freedomflotilla.org. You can Google how to track it. It's going to take you right to the website where we can be tracking. The more eyes across the world that are watching this boat, the better. The more awareness is going to be brought to the genocide that is happening. The UN announced, I don't know why it took so long, but the UN announced on September 16th that Israel is in fact committing genocide in Gaza. And I think we need to be, as a nation, as a world, every country in the world should be doing what they can to stop it.
I think more eyes are now trained in on what's happening in Gaza.
They sure are.
Yeah, it feels that way to me anyway. Mm-hmm. To hear it being discussed at the highest levels of government, both in Israel and other parts of the Middle East, and of course here in North America, specifically in the United States, is they're basically just talking about it like a real estate transaction. It really does betray the atrocity.
That is an interesting way.
Yeah, but that's kind of how it's been boiled down to in certain corners. I know there's a peace proposal on the table yet to be discussed, but we haven't talked enough about, the bare fundamentals, regardless of your support for Israel or for Palestine or anything else in this world. For decades, we have long understood the weaponization of humanitarian aid, food in particular, is a war crime. Not because I say so, because the modern world has agreed to it decades ago. So, alarmingly...
You're dead on, Patty.
Pardon me?
Mm-hmm. You're dead on. That's exactly right. And I mean, if what's happening in Gaza doesn't define our definition of a genocide, I don't understand why it's been going on for so long.
And people will, say, well, it's not that, it's this. Whatever it is in anybody's mind, whether it be ethnic cleansing or genocide or the results of October the 7th, which is a complete confusion of the past number of decades regarding tensions in that part of the world, we've just got to, I think, collectively understand that if you question the behavior of IDF in Gaza, West Bank, what have you, that is not what is actual anti-Semitism. That's a reflection of what's going on the ground. It's not based in religion, it's based in action. But yet we seemingly can't have the conversation because it gets so quickly derailed as you're either a racist or you're anti-Semite or you're whatever brand that people like to attach to you versus have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. My purpose of the call today and to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador is, despite all the things that you just said, I think what we need to recognize is that, again, there are three intelligent, young, passionate people from St. John's that felt compelled. They felt that they had no choice but to get on a boat heading for known danger in an effort to bring aid to an entire population of people that are being, it's a manufactured famine. And I don't feel anyone should have to be on that boat, but I am inspired to be more vocal and to take more action as much as I can here by Devani, Nikita, and Sadie. And again, keeping your eyes on them, contacting our governments, asking them to stop sanctions and asking them to protect this boat that 6 Canadian passport holders are on. And I think that's important. And I know that more flotillas are going to follow until this genocide stops. If the genocide stopped, if it's a manufactured famine. There's no aid in the world that's actually going to fix the problem. What's going to fix the problem is is stopping the illegal occupation of Gaza.
And I didn't mean to derail the focus of your call here this morning. Just adding context so that we, maybe open up a few more ears. But absolutely, the protection of anyone involved in trying to provide aid, whether it be in this Freedom Flotilla or ones yet to come, is of course paramount. I understand in full. So, in addition to writing members of Parliament and the PMO and what have you, are there any specific other, maybe smaller gestures or larger gestures that you would suggest listeners should consider?
Pay attention. Don't turn away from the images that you're seeing. You should be upset by them. You should feel compelled to do something about it, whether it's talking about it, sharing the information that you're seeing, tracking that boat, and bringing my Sadie home. Those are very minor things you can be doing that are going to go a long way. Let those people know that you're watching them, and let the rest of the world know that they should be watching.
Vicky, I appreciate your time. Please keep in touch. Let me know what's happening, and fingers crossed for everybody's safe return.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The immediate backlash or feedback that we get on calls such as that is not surprising. But like most of the most traumatic conversations, it would be really helpful if we were all willing to engage, regardless of your point of view on these major issues, whether it be internationally, domestically, provincially, whatever the case may be, is I think we owe it to ourselves to have maybe more in the way of conversation, as opposed to people thinking that it's a zero-sum game. I must win and you must lose in a conversation about things as emotional, as traumatic, as impactful as things like Vicky just brought up here this morning, and most every other conversation that has significant ramifications today and into the future. I think we can all do a little bit better there. No one has to try to win. Let's see, we'll take a break on time here. John, you're in the queue. He's out in Grand Falls, Windsor, to talk long-term care. How else are we doing on the phone there, Dave? And then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. John, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, how about you?
I'm fine, thank you very much, Patty. Listen, before I was waiting to get online, I heard a political ad for John Whalen. That's not me.
Okay.
but he is my cousin.
Very well. Of course, John Whalen is running for the Liberals here in Pleasantville?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
We don't agree politically, but I think we'll both agree that his father, also named John Whalen, was one of the finest people we ever knew. But anyway, what I'm calling to you about today, Patty, is about long-term care in the province. I'm the chair of the Resident Family Council for Grand Falls, Windsor Long-Term Care, which is the new long-term care home that was built along Exploits River. Doesn't have a name yet, unfortunately, so that's why I'm got to go with the long name, Grand Falls, Windsor Long-Term Care. There are people in the community who refer to it as the P3, which really annoys me because I say it's not a P3, it's a place where people live. So if you want to call it PPL, that's fine. But anyway, the reason for my call today is that in January of this year, the provincial government released a long-term care and personal care home review with a number of recommendations. And thus far, we have heard nothing about how those large number of recommendations are going to be implemented. I was speaking to the Premier himself, actually, a couple of weeks ago. He was here in Grand Falls, Windsor for a senior wellness fair. And I asked him, point blank about the implementation. Now, he reminded me that his Liberal government had accepted all the recommendations, but that wasn't my question. I said, when are they going to be implemented? And like I said, we have heard nothing about that. the most important, just one of those recommendations is this one. In long-term care, increase the direct hours of care for residents and adjust the skill mix and staffing model to ensure staff are working to full scope. Now, one of those actions required for that is in year one, increase the average direct care hours for nursing, that's PCAs, LPNs, and RNs, from an average of 3.4 hours per resident per day to 3.7 hours per resident per day, and by year two, increase it to 4.0 hours per resident per day. Now, those numbers probably don't mean much to your listeners, but my wife, Sue, for example, is in a wing of Grand Falls Winter Long-Term Care called Waterfall Way. And hello?
I'm just listening, John.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure. But anyway, the difference between 3.5 and 4 hours in Waterfall Way, where my wife Sue lives, would be 7.5 hours, which would be like that's a full employee, right? 8 hours a day. And what's really frustrating for us in particular is that we had 3.7 hours for about a year and a half, ended about a year ago. And that was put forward by our local managers, made that happen. But they were compelled to go back to 3.5 hours because that's the provincial standard. But according to this report, the average is not even, it was lower than 3.5, it's 3.4. And like I said, I'd like to know where the various political parties are on the implementation of the recommendations to this report. And like I said, I'm just got one for you there on staffing, which is, like I said, they could have done that for Grand Falls Windsor long-term care. They could have done that immediately because they already knew how to provide that 3.7 hours in our home.
There's a lot to it. So it's important to note this has been in the works a long, long time. The review was commissioned in February 2023 is my recollection. Eventually, and we were told at that time, the public will be made aware of the recommendations and the findings within like 8 months. And then it was February of 2025 when they finally released it. There was 23 recommendations. There were 7 specific about individuals as opposed to operations. And, just to expand this a little further, I think this all started with the ability or the want to keep couples together entering long-term care, regardless of their level of need. But then we talked about things like the use of restraints, the inappropriate use of antipsychotic medications. We talked about the fact that, for the most part, they're unable to have their own, build their own routine. So that's a resident-specific level of care that we've got to hit, and some of that comes with staffing levels. Same thing with limiting falls. What was the other phrasing? Something like, create your own physical functioning habits, routines throughout the course of the day, which almost everything boils back to staffing levels.
Yeah. Patty, it seems to me like you know more about what's in this report than the people running for office right now appear to know. Because, like I said, we've heard nothing about the implementation of these numerous and very reasonable recommendations.
Well, I'm glad you called on it because I have in the recent past talked about the Auditor General's review of personal care homes and operational standards that haven't been updated since 2007, those types of things. We've heard some talk about long-term care on the campaign trail, specifically the NDP talk about keeping couples together. We also hear a lot of talk about aging in place, but institutionalizing seniors in long-term care is still going to be part of the offerings into the future. So now that you've put this back on my front burner, I'll go back and read some of that report later on this evening to see if I can refresh my memory on certain things regarding meal plans and all that was involved in it. I can't recall all of them off the top of my head, but I'll have another look this afternoon.
Yeah, page 85 is the a recommendation on staffing if you're wanting to find that for sure. 'Cause it is a very dense report.
Well, I remember having my first look at it, and when I clicked open the link, I think it said page 1 of like 203 or something, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot there. Yeah. I'll have a look again this afternoon, but I appreciate you bringing it up this morning, John. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I'd like to know if I could call later in the week, because I'd be interested in maybe addressing this again after the leaders' debate on Wednesday.
Yeah, let's try for it.
Okay, thank you very much, brother.
Thanks, John. All the best. All right, bye-bye. Yeah, I'm glad that's back out there, because there's a lot of tentacles stem from it. Let's go to line 4. Helen, you're on the air.
Hi. I wonder if you can help me, Patty.
Hope so.
I was out doing grocery shopping, and I was at Sobeys, and I was at Dominion. And I was talking to this lady, and she knew me from past. And anyway, she said, my husband passed away 3 months. I said, I know, I'm sorry to hear that. I said, mine is 9 years now, I said. But what gives me great comfort is the fact that I have his ashes in this heart. And it hasn't been off my neck, I said, for almost that 9 years. I said, I shower with it on. And she said, well, I got one, but I'm afraid I might lose it. I said, well, mine is there. And so I came on home and got ready and went on to bed. The next morning I got up and went out to brush my teeth and that. And when I did, I looked in the mirror and no chain. It was gone.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. So right off the bat, first thing you know me, I lost. That's the second time I lost him and he died. Now I lost him again. But in reality, it's not. He'll always be with me. But I was just wondering if you could reach out and put out to see if anyone had picked it up. I'm after going up to Dominion a couple of times. I'm after going up to Sobeys. But now somebody might pick it up, a child or a teenager, and not know what's in it and how valuable it is to me. But if you could put it out there that if anyone has it, that if they could turn in even to, come here with it, or they go put it in the OCM and I'll pick it up. Whatever is more convenient for you.
Helen, Sobeys and Dominion, what part of town?
Roe Park Lane for Sobeys and Black Marsh Road for Dominion.
So you're probably right. Whoever picked it up doesn't really understand the importance of it and what's included in the heart pendant. So someone absolutely has it. And if so, now that you know how important it is to Helen, please do indeed contact us and we will put you in touch with Helen and see if we can get that back in your hands. And I really hope that happens.
That'd be really good.
Helen, what was your husband's name?
Matthew.
And you say he's been...
funny, he worked at Dominion for 4 years, and of all the places to leave him, in the produce department, I think I lost it around that way, and that's where he worked for 40 years.
Well, let's hope that brings some good vibes to its safe return. Well, we'll do everything we can, Helen.
Yeah, and I want you to thank Dave. He's a great guy, and you're an investor of me enlightening so many people with all the news that you give us. What's going on? The only thing is now I find that I have no problem going out for a walk in the night time, but now I'm so scared to even open my door. What's going on here?
Yeah, it shouldn't be the way. Yeah.
The world is gone mad. You can every day. Someone is stabbed, someone is shot, someone is broke into. So it's a hard way to live, confined. It's almost like being in prison.
Yeah, if things have changed dramatically and not for the better. Helen, you take good care. And
will you keep up the good work, my darling? You keep up the good work. You're doing a great job. And so are the rest of you, because I know Colette too. And then so I make sure that everybody knows that the OCM does care about other people.
Well, we care enough to really hope and see if we can't get that necklace back in your hands and around your neck.
Oh, my God. That would be the wish of my life. Okay,
Thank you so much, Helen. Good luck.
Thank you so much, sweetheart.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, someone picked it up, right? And so, it's just a necklace, and, someone's probably not going to miss it too much, and I like the look of it. Well, Helen's late husband's ashes are independent, so now that you know what that means to Helen, please do indeed, if you have it. And no questions asked. You get it to us, we'll get it to Helen. Let's see here. Let's take a break for the news. When we come back, tons of time left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Will I take 5 here, Dave? Let's see here. Am I going to take the number 5? It's not kicked into my system here quite yet. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to one of the candidates running for the Deputy Mayor of the City of St. John's. That's Rigel Penman. Rigel, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty. Thanks very much for having me on.
No problem at all. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I just wanted to get on the air and kind of talk a bit more about just how important municipal politics really are and how much stuff we affect, because I find when I go around and when I'm talking to people, there's a lot of passion and a lot of interest behind a lot of the same sort of issues, really basic bread and butter stuff like snow clearing, transit improvement, what the city's doing about housing, and all of this stuff is the type of thing that City Hall does play a really big role in. And so when I talk to people who, kind of feel a little disenfranchised about wondering does their vote really matter, I just want to remind people as much as I can that it really does matter. And, in the last election, like I say, when I was looking at some of the numbers for, the total number of votes that sent councillors at large to office, because those are citywide positions that everyone can vote on, and a lot of them were getting elected with, between 12 and 13,000 votes. So in a city this big, with those types of numbers, people's votes really do matter. And for those basic issues like getting the snow cleared and, seeing our transit services improve and all these other things, the city government has a big role to play. And when I talk to, people on the government side and, kind of ask why there isn't more movement in certain areas or why they aren't, more engaged on certain things, they tend to say that, their attention usually goes where they see the votes coming from. And so, for anyone who does feel like, their like their vote doesn't matter or like it's not worth getting out, it really is. And so, I just wanted to make sure people know that there is still time. The election is on Wednesday. You can vote all the way up till 8 p.m. on Election Day at your polling place. There's one in every ward. And, whatever your issue is, whether you're mostly concerned about getting the snow cleared, whether you want to see the city do more about accessibility and getting around, having your voice heard and making and getting in touch with your elected officials and your candidates and sending your preferred candidate to office can really make a huge difference. So, I just wanted to encourage people to get out there and vote and remind everybody just how much stuff city government does.
Let's dig into a couple of specific issues that you'd like to focus in on as a candidate, Rigel.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of my stuff is really those the bread and butter issues in the immediate future. Like I say, snow clearing is a big one, improving transit. But for me, I also think that there's a lot of stuff that the city government can do with using tools that, really don't require money. It's just kind of different application of our legislative effort. So one of those is looking at how we rezone things to allow for, to encourage more small locally owned business, to allow for sort of a more diverse employment economy, and to allow for sort of a more, I think, healthy economy and supply chain. Like, we've seen out here when there's, kind of shocks to the system and you have all of your supplies coming from a few big companies, that can really cause a pretty big impact in the community. Whereas I think when you see more small locally owned businesses with, who are sourcing their supplies from more domestic sources, you're going to see an economy that's a lot more resilient to those types of shocks and is going to be able to keep people fed, keep the lights on, and, keep functioning through more unsteady kind of economic waters a lot more consistently. And so that's something that can have a big impact that I think city government could be doing pretty immediately. And like I say, it doesn't really need to spend any money up front to make those changes. We just kind of have to take a little more time to look at where we want to see those businesses grow and kind of what we can do to encourage them and to help them come along. Like we see some pockets of it happening already, like, the St. John's Farmers Market every Saturday has loads of independent businesses setting up shop there. And, when I go down there and talk to them, a lot of stuff they talk about is, having access to space, being able to get around, and a lot of these really kind of simple fundamentals that allow them to start growing their operations. And I think that, everybody likes seeing those locally owned businesses succeed. And so when I look at what city government can do to help in situations like that, I think kind of simple tools like rezoning, looking at expediting permit applications, looking at simplifying kind of the number of licenses you need to do sort of simple bread and butter stuff is something, is a step we can take right away that would make life for those people who are working to make our local economy better a lot easier.
Fair enough. When we talk about that economic chain and the support for smaller businesses, there's probably a little bit of a different approach required when we talk about businesses operating in the downtown, for instance, versus other parts of the city. So that's where that kind of conversation we really need to focus in on, because what might be leading to the concerns for a downtown business might not be the same for a business in Churchill Square, might not be the same for a business at Ropeock Lane. So there are different needs and details required to support all those businesses. It can't be just a blanket. I know you agree with that.
Oh yeah, 100%, and that's really kind of what I was trying to focus in on as one of my policies was making sure that when I say rezoning and kind of reconsidering basic regulations, that we are doing exactly that. We're being aware of what the actual needs of these businesses or industries are. Like for example, when I was down at the farmers market talking to somebody who does a lot of work that kind of skirts the line between industry, like trades and artwork. They do a lot of work with copper and other metals, and they were sort of talking about their needs as a shop where they've got needs for certain needs for power and electricity and water and drainage and all that, and the ability to dispose of potentially hazardous material. Whereas they're saying other places other parts of their process or other people they work with, they might only need power for a sewing machine type of thing to have their business operate. And so I think being aware of that type of need is really important. Like one simple way I heard someone put it once was nobody wants to have a nuclear power plant next to a preschool. We all agree we want power produced, we all agree we want preschools, but we need to be aware that we need to be conscious about where we're putting these operations to make sure that like you say, everybody's unique needs are being met and that there aren't overlapping conflicts with each other when we try and set them up.
Fair enough. I appreciate the time you make for the show this morning. Good luck on the trail. How's it going out there?
Oh, it's good. But if anything, I wish I had a little more time. Although I'm really grateful for the extra week. Although I wish it, I appreciate that it came under sort of non-ideal circumstances. But like I say, I'm grateful for the opportunity to try and get the message out and try and encourage everybody to get out there and vote. And so far it's been great.
Good for you. Congratulations on taking a swing at it. I wish you good luck.
Right on. Thanks very much, Patty. You have a great day.
The same to you. It's Raghu Penman, running for the Deputy Mayor's chair here in the city of St. John's. I saw, we're talking about mail-in ballots and the deadlines for getting the ballots back into the hands. Then I read an issue regarding trying to cast a special ballot or simply a mail-in ballot if you live out of province, and what the complications of the Canada Post strike mean. So the story went on to say that, of course, because you can't put it in the regular mail, then you have to put it in the hands of a courier. So the simple cost, if you are out of province for whatever reason and want to mail in your ballot, your special ballot, $34 was the lowest cost this one lady could find, and it ranged up towards $100. How many people do you think are going to spend that kind of money simply to cast the vote? Some might, of course, but others, probably not. That's a pretty significant chunk of change to simply get a ballot in the hands of Elections NL. All right, let's take a break here. When we come back, there's a caller there who wants to talk about aging well at home and the scent-free zones. Interesting. Let's go. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number one. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly.
Good morning.
Yeah, of all the promises our Premier is putting on their air, I want to elaborate on one only. That's the Aging Well at Home Seniors Grant.
Okay.
What's actually is he saying? It's a hard job to understand.
Are you asking me what he's saying?
Yeah, like he's saying that if he's come Premier, this was a one-time payment there last year, right? For seniors for $400 a month. That's only a one-time payment, and the cutoff was March 2025 for the final applications. A lot of people applied for it, and a lot of people got that $400, but I don't actually know what he's saying about this one now.
What he said is that if they were elected, they would double the grant from $400 to $800. They would also double the caregiver grant from $400 to $800. They did increase the threshold for eligibility as well. That happened this year.
Yeah, that happened this year, but what actually he's saying increased the amount to $400. The word is coming out of his mouth is $400 a month.
No.
That's 12 months.
No, it's an annual grant, right? So that's what he said. I mean, this is not me trying to put words in anyone's mouth. So the Aging Well at Home grant is an annual grant. It's a one-timer, at one time per year. So he's saying that it'll go from $400 to $800, and it also increased the caregiver benefit from $400 to $800. There's also a household. So for couples, the cutoff for what represents low income was $49,000 or less for couples and $32,000 or less for singles.
Yeah, but I've read what he was saying, but actually I've read it a couple of times. He's actually saying $400 a month, but he's not actually saying it's an annual payment, one-time payment. It's just a month. So I'd like to clarify that statement, what he's saying.
Right. I think the $400 a month, well, that's talking about the disability benefits, which is different from the Aging Well at Home grant.
Well, if he is, then he's not coming out to explain it the right way to us seniors to understand. You know, I certainly understand it, but I guess there's a lot of people out there. But if you had to read between the lines what he's actually saying, you know, if he's listening, get it clarified first. Because I notice how it works, seniors well home annually, but actually it's coming out a month. Just clarify words before you come out and say it's actually a month. That's what he's saying, but. If he's going to come out and say $400 a month, but he should say, well, yes, annually, one-time payment. But he's not saying that one-time payment. So everyone who's reading his speech, go over the speech and actually see what he's saying.
Yeah, I didn't hear or see the speech, but my understanding is exactly how I explained it. Aging Well at Home grant is an annual grant at $400. He's pledging to double. The disabilities benefit is up to $400 a month for those who qualify, so $4,800 maximum annually, and the $1,200 contribution to the registered disability savings plan. So there are two different things. If he didn't do a very good job in distinguishing them, then I guess that's on him.
Yeah, well, then it's too bad I can't rewind my tape because I did, like I say, I'm over and over and over and over. I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but that's actually what he's saying. So we'll let it go for that. He said, if it is, that's misleading the general public. If he's saying $400 a month, and then his conversation is cut off. Well, added up to $800 a month if I'm elected. So that's all he's saying. Yeah,
I once again, I didn't hear it, but I'm just trying to give you what I know to be the facts about the two different benefits payments. The one annual, the one monthly. And again, it's not up to me to try to decipher what one politician or another says. I could just speak to what I know to be true. Also, did you want to talk about scent-free zones?
Yes, but son, you can't even go into an established land by somebody. Like I'm allergic to that blasted stuff, right? Same thing as the old marijuana. People out on your patio smoking marijuana. You can't go out and enjoy a bit of fresh air. Taking away my liberty right to go out and sit down on a chair and enjoy the sun, breathe in a bit of fresh air. They say, it's legalized. Yeah, you know what I like to be saying to you as well, right? You know, that people say, oh, yes. But you ain't got the common sense. Like people walking into establishments, coating themselves down with cologne and not having the respect for people like me. And there's people like they're like us. I am like it. There's people like they're like it that just can't be around that blasted stuff, right?
I totally get it. It was never a problem for me. I don't know if things are changing as I get older, but it used to be like I'd go to the drugstore, you go in the main entrance, you got to go through the cosmetics portion of the store. It never used to bother me, but now it kind of does. Even if I'm walking up and down the aisle in the grocery store, in the aisle that say has all the fabric softeners and detergent and stuff, now more than ever I notice it. I mean, I'm certainly not don't struggle with it like you possibly do, but I do notice it more than I ever did in the past.
Yeah, but where I'm allergic and my brothers, we got there's a special detergent and hand soap out there for us like that. It's paraffin free and fragrance free. That's why we have it. That's why we got to buy it. That's why we got to buy it. If not, we can't wash our clothes in the ordinary laundry detergent because we have something out there now that's paraffin free and fragrance free. So that's what I've been using for the last 6 years. Let people know.
Fair enough. I don't know how many people out there have the adverse reaction to some of these heavy scented colognes and perfumes and detergents, what have you. But I know it's a real thing, obviously.
Yeah. Well, do you mind me if I give you a call someday of the week about? Supposed to give you a call back about the update on my vehicle. I haven't got time today.
Okay.
I'll enlighten you up about the satisfaction and dissatisfaction I got from the dealership there in July. Me and you had a talk, but I'll give you a call someday the week and give you an update on that.
Yeah, maybe early next week so we can give the show a bit of breathing space. But I appreciate your time this morning. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah, again, if one politician or another kind of conflates or jumbles a bunch of different policies and pockets of money into the same paragraph or sentence, it does become difficult for people to decipher exactly what was being spoken about. So all I can say is what I actually read and know to be true regarding the Aging Well at Home grant and the difference between that and the Newfoundland disabilities benefit payments, which are monthly with a maximum of $400. There's all sorts of ways that you can get less than $400. But anyway, let's keep going. Line number 2. Gary, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. I bet you're really happy about the good news last night to the Blue Jays. Wow, what a game, huh?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, I'm one of those fans. I don't live and die with every game, but the teams I cheer for when they do well, of course, I enjoyed it, and I certainly enjoyed the weekend of baseball.
Oh yeah, it was so exciting last night. You know, like you mentioned on Friday, you'd like to hear some good news, and to me, that was the good news of yesterday. A trade day. They called it a trade day. That was so nice. That young pitcher, holy mackerel, he struck out. I forget how many he struck out, but and then Snyder pulled him out after 5 2/3 innings, and the standing ovation. I had goosebumps. I was crying. The father was crying. I was crying too. I was so excited for the Blue Jays because I'm a long-time Blue Jays fan. Ever since they became in existence, I've been cheering for the Blue Jays. They're Canada's team, and the Blue Jays they do a lot of stuff for the community too. And even here in Newfoundland, when they had that Batters Box Day, when they raised all that money for whatever the money for raising funds for here in Newfoundland
Wildfire relief.
Yeah, the wildfire.
Yeah.
Oh man, because they do so much for they do this for right across Canada. The Blue Jays, you know, they're Canada's team. It's not the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm sorry, it's the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jays are my team, and the pitcher you're talking about, Trey Savage, I mean, it's remarkable. 22 years old, the first game of pro ball he played this year was in front of 324 fans. Last night he pitched in front of over 44,500.
Oh, yeah.
And for anyone who's ever been to the Rogers Centre, it's electric. It is super fun time to go and hear how loud it is in there and how passionate the fans are. And you're right, the manager Schneider pulled him out after 5 1/3. 78 pitches, 11 strikeouts. I think the logic behind it is pretty sound. Number one, throw him back out there to pitch to one hitter so he can get the standing O when he comes out. Secondly, why give the Yankees a third look at him? You might need him in Game 5 to come out of the pen. I thought it made sense to me.
Me too, because, you know, they could use him on Tuesday. They could use him tomorrow night. They could use him tomorrow night out of the bullpen to shut the Yankees down, and then the Yankees, they could go golf.
Yeah, you won't see him in game number 3, but you might get a peek at him in game number 5 if the series gets that far. And I don't know what's going to happen in the Bronx, but it's going to probably be a little bit more hostile and tougher than it was in Toronto.
Oh yeah, because that's what they were commenting about. So it's going to be like a going into the lines down in New York, because the fans are good. They're going to be hostile to the Blue Jays because, first of all, they beat the Yankees 2-0. Now the fans are really bad, and that I don't think I wouldn't want to be in that stadium.
The fans are mad at their own team. I imagine the New York fans are pretty disillusioned with the Yankee players, and some of them are so quiet. Now they might wake up just like Guerrero woke up at home, and to see him hitting some home runs is a sight for sore eyes, because he has been brutal for the last 20-odd games.
Yeah, two days in a row, and he 2 days in a row he got a home run the 2 games, and the grand slam. Oh my! I was pinching myself during the game. I thought, am I watching this? Is this real?
The pitch before, he took it. It was a strike, and he does some of those little hot dog moves he does. Now you have to be good to be hot dog. And I said out loud to my wife, "I wish you would stop with the hot dog stuff." 3 seconds later, it was in the outfield second deck. So it was pretty fun to watch. That
was exciting. You know, Peter Marr used to, for the Calgary Flames and Toronto Maple Leafs, he said, "Yeah, baby." I was doing a lot of babies last night.
I appreciate the time. Enjoy the baseball, Gary.
Okay, and one other thing. You mentioned on Friday about having a day where you want to hear nothing but good news. I'm all for that. I hope you get a day where you can say, you know what, this day I don't want to hear no complaining, nothing. I just want to hear good news. And if you don't have no good news, then don't tell me your bad news.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'd be much appreciated by me. Certainly, I would think by most of the listeners, with a little dollop of good news every now and then. It's good for the soul, because there's lots of stuff going on that's the furthest thing from good. Gary, appreciate this. Enjoy the rest of the postseason.
Okay, thanks, Patty. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Yeah, and Dave, came in and said, of course you'll see the focus on Vladdy in the Grand Slam. It's wild. Varsho last night, first 4 at-bats, 2 doubles, 2 home runs. I mean, Clement with a one-handed home run, Springer with another home run. It's great stuff. Let's take a break. When we come back, Sharon's got a bouquet, and then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Sharon. You're on the air.
Well, good morning. How are you?
No, not too bad this morning. Thank you. How about you?
Oh, that's good. My first time.
Welcome.
And I'm calling on behalf of at the Sir Thomas House in Stephenville. And I'm just calling to know and everybody that it was a beautiful service that they provided to me when I most definitely needed it. I was going into a piece of heart failure, and I had fluid on my lung, and the doctors and the nurses couldn't do enough for me. They went above and beyond the care that they gave me, and I think that was a time that I really needed care like that. And from the time I went in through the emergency doors to the time that I left, I was treated with that I was an important person, and I couldn't ask for better care by the doctors, nurses, and it didn't stop there. The people who brought in the meals, who cleaned my room, and they always made a try to stop how I would, and that made me feel special.
Sharon,
and I want to thank them again.
I'm really pleased to hear that's how you were treated at the hospital. How long were you admitted?
I went in on the 6th of August, and I came on the 27th of August.
Okay. The phone connection is not great, but how are you feeling now?
I'm feeling perfect.
Oh.
Just I never had anything honest.
I'm really glad to hear that you're doing well and that you got treated the way you did at the hospital there in Stephenville. You know, we have these types of conversations every now and then when, look, I understand people's concerns with healthcare and wait times and access to a doctor and access to MRIs and stuff, but when people get in, usually they get treated very well by very compassionate professionals.
First, where the doctor and nurse are coming from. I mean, those nurses are on for 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer, and they don't stop, you know? And the minute you ring your bell, they're there to see what you need, how they can help you. And if you need to see the doctor, he's there within minutes. You know, it is a good... I can't say anything about the hospital, I must say.
Terrific. I'm really pleased to hear all of this, Sharon.
Yes. And, you know, if we gave the doctors and the nurses a little bit of credit, I think it would be good work.
Sharon, you take good care of yourself. I really appreciate your time this morning.
Okay, thank you very much, and you have a nice day.
You too, Sharon.
Okay,
all the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Fair enough. Dave's organising our next caller in the queue on the topic. I have no earthly idea. Just very quickly, so I got a couple of emails back to back. I don't even know if it's the same person who wrote them, but my goodness, they're so eerily similar. And it's why I would dare question any promises or pledges made on the campaign trail that would improve people's lives. What? No. Things that would improve people's lives are a good thing, right? Yeah. The question that I'm asking is, you know, when politicians campaign, of course they don't campaign on taking things away, but at the exact same time, I do think we owe it to each other, and I think politicians owe it to us, that they give us some earthly idea about where all the money's coming from. That's all. And I don't think that's an unfair request of a politician, whether it be in the form of a fully costed platform, those types of things. But the fact of the matter is, we're approaching a net debt up around $20 billion. We're not getting any younger. So it's either we're just going to continue to borrow and we're going to continue to service the debt to the tune of $1 billion+ per year. And what that means year over year, time after time, is an unsustainable future. That's all. And it's not about, hey, we can't do this for one person, we can't do this for one age group, but we really need to know where all the money's coming from. And if they just say, well, we're going to keep borrowing, or they'll give us another vague reference to finding savings, well, find savings where? I just don't think we get enough detail on that stuff. Let's go to line number 4. Ivy, you're on the air.
Yes, I'm complaining about the healthcare system this morning.
Sure.
And the Liberal government. I mean, if they keep them in, we won't have no healthcare system. I've been waiting since January to get an ultrasound on my kidneys. And they got me an appointment for September. I went up in September. It was canceled till December. And now someone else has taken my appointment. They were doing ultrasounds there. I mean, if our system is gone now, the next will be hospital closed. And I really need that ultrasound because I got problems. And I'm a senior. I'm a diabetic. And I got 2 siblings died with cancer. But I can't even get an ultrasound in 10 months. So what is the health service in Newfoundland doing for the people? The seniors is just, I don't know, they're not even looking after them. It's really ridiculous.
I know you're frustrated with having to wait. Were you told why appointments were postponed or canceled? Was it that there wasn't a technician to operate the ultrasound, or what was it? Do you happen to know?
There was a technician there. Someone else got called in to do ultrasound while I was there. Now, and so they're doing them. They were doing them. So why 10 months and now a year? And when the year is up, I might not get in then. I might be cancelled again. I don't know if it's because I haven't got a doctor and I got a nurse practitioner. Then they don't think she know what she's doing. What she does, she's better than any doctor I ever had. So I don't know if that's the reason. But why 10 months and now a year before you can get an ultrasound at the hospital? It's getting ridiculous. I mean, the Liberal government, if they keep them in, we won't have no care at the hospital at all because they'll close it out.
What part of the province are you calling from, Ivy?
I'm calling from Clareville area.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also waiting for a test, and I've been waiting quite a long time, so I know where you're coming from. I don't feel too bad now, but I'd like to know if there's something going on so we can get out in front of it.
What, a year for an ultrasound?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, and he's out there every day. What he's going to do for Newfoundland, he's doing nothing, only putting his back. It's gone now. We can't go no further. We really, really need to get rid of that Liberal government we got right now.
Do you, look, you vote for whoever you want to vote for. Do you think that a change in party in power is going to make healthcare better or worse? Or let's stick with better, because I think we've got our hands full, regardless of who's going to sit in the seat of government, about improving the healthcare system. That's just the way I think about it. How about you? You think the Tories are the savior for the healthcare system?
No, I was always a Liberal. I vote Liberal. But right now, I can't vote Liberal anymore. I mean, we had 2 good doctors in Clareville a couple of years ago. They were in internal medicine. They weren't getting the same money as they got in St. John's. And so they wouldn't give it to them. And they wouldn't give them the money. Because Parrott went on complaining, give them money. They wouldn't give them what they got in St. John's, so they left to win St. John's. I mean, they'd pay the money. They'd have the doctors up there. They're not paying the money. That's the problem. So we can't have no worse than what we got there now. Definitely can't. Because it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So we really do need a change in government.
Ivy, I appreciate the sentiment and your time. Fingers crossed you can get that ultrasound ASAP. I know you need it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Take care. All right, bye-bye. Internal medicine, this is an interesting conversation because we spoke with Lloyd Parrott last week about losing an internal medicine specialist out in that specific region that Ivy was actually talking about. And then remember, there was a mass resignation of 5 internal specialists at St. Clair's. And that was about working conditions and a variety of things. And, at that point, also, the health sciences staff chimed in and say, hey, we can't take on any extra workload because of all the patients displaced at St. Clair's. And, immediately then politicians talk about what they can do to improve things, whatever. But, whether it be in town or elsewhere, the ability to recruit and retain is becoming more and more difficult. I mean, just think about who are the most coveted professionals in the country. And this is not to say that, we're not talking about tech and innovative talent pools, what have you, but healthcare pros are highly mobile, highly sought after, and they are going to go where it makes their life better. Right? It just stands to reason. If you are offered a job, regardless of what you do for a living, to go to one part of the province or one part of the country where your life might be better and you might make more money and better opportunities for your wife, for your husband and your kids, but there's a reason why we're really up against it here. It's a crying shame. And this is across the country, that we got provinces going into other provinces to poach healthcare professionals. Because everybody in every province and every territory is facing a very similar issue, which is mind-boggling to me. We're told at the exact same time there's more doctors and more nurses working in the province than ever before. But what we don't know, especially in the world of doctors, are they all working with full rosters of patients or some hybrid of, or what exactly is going on? But I understand Ivy's concern. If you're waiting for something and you're not doing well, then of course he'll point to the broken system that many people characterize it to be. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to Brenda Kitchen. She's with Protect NL. Brenda, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. So nice to be chatting to you. We've been out and about on the road distributing newsletters, talking about different things happening in the province and encouraging people to ask the politicians, good questions when they're coming door to door. And we were in Marystown yesterday, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we heard boots on the ground in Marystown.
Sure. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to the people on the Burin Peninsula. They have been educating themselves and they've been taking action and standing up saying no against the Everwind Fuels Wind Hydrogen Mega Project. And they have been having multiple polls out on the Burin Peninsula. And I think the latest average is like 82% are saying no to the Everwind Fuels Mega Project. And they just had 2 more polls recently, one in Fortune and one out in Grand Bank. So a huge thank you to all of those people that have been working so hard to make sure that Everwind Fuels and their elected members know that they're saying no. So there's a woman out there. Her name is Deborah Beck, and she lives in Swift Current, and she's actually written a letter, and they're asking for the energy board to be dissolved because they got this energy board created on the Burin Peninsula, and they're claiming that this energy board represents all the people. But what the energy board did was when they were created, it was 6 days after they were created, they wrote a support letter to Everwind Fuels and had never spoke to anybody in their communities. And they still haven't had any meetings where they've spoke and taken these concerns into consideration. So the people are having these polls and they're saying, look, this is how the people really feel, and you don't represent us, and you never did, and you need to be dissolved immediately. And they're also asking for the Everwind Fuels mega project to be stopped immediately. And they're circulating this letter, and this woman is looking for signatures, and she has about 400 now. And just want to let people know that, the people on the Burin Peninsula are taking a stand together despite not being listened to. And if you live anywhere and you think what's happening is wrong, I encourage you to stand with Deborah and consider signing this letter.
Okay, quick question about, you say if what you see happening is wrong, sign the letter, what have you. Is there anything actually happening?
Well, the Energy Board has given their support to Everwind Fuels. And so we see deception happening and people's voices being ignored happening. And these people are very worried about this mega project. The one that Everwind Fuels is proposing is the biggest in Newfoundland, and it's supposed to be the biggest in all of North America. I don't think people really understand how huge these mega projects are. They keep comparing them to the one in St. Lawrence. That's like 10 turbines, 1/3 the height. They want 1,550 on the Burin Peninsula at 738 feet tall. And Patty, I still got people calling me a liar when I talk about these things, but like the height is not private. That's listed in their environmental, that's in writing by the company. So I encourage people, they got to start doing their own research. And so that's what's happening on the Burin Peninsula when it comes to the people are very worried that they're not being heard. The elected members aren't talking to the wind energy projects. They won't say anything about it publicly, and they're not. These people are worried about their health, and that land is being used. And even in the newsletter that we are distributing, there's an article in there written by Cass Clark, who lives in St. Lawrence, and he gives an example of the deception that's been happening on the Burin Peninsula. So, when you got people not elected members claiming publicly that they represent the people, and the polls, the evidence clearly shows otherwise, then that is a huge problem, and it needs to be addressed. And this letter that this brave woman is standing up and circulating, this woman from Swift Current, that's what that's saying. It's like, look, you don't get to speak on behalf of us. Just self-appoint a board and then give a letter 6 days later on a mega project that's going to affect everybody's lives. That's wrong. That's not how it's supposed to work. So the people are saying no, and quite frankly, when people are being silenced that way and that sort of deception is happening, we should all be very concerned, whether we live there or not.
Has everyone been released from environmental assessment even at this point?
Well, Patty, I got to tell you, I am just overwhelmed with learning about wind energy and trying to keep track of what's happening. So I got to say, I encourage people to go on the websites and start doing this research themselves, because we're still trying to get our basic questions asked about World Energy GH2 over here on the West Coast. And I got to tell you, I am so glad that you're talking about the water and energy that's used by the data centers. Because I'm learning about wind energy, now I'm learning about data centers, and it's like even just one conversation with ChatGPT supposed to use a liter of water. So, we got to be talking about our water consumption for these mega projects. There's a lot going on here on the island, but the first step to communicating our messages is listening to the people and what they want, and the people really got to keep using their voices and continue to unify. And I just love what's happening on the Burin Peninsula, because like everywhere else, people are standing up and they're automatically being thrown, oh, you don't want to work anyway, or you don't want any jobs. Well, there's serious concerns about the number of jobs that's going to be offered and coming with these projects. We have an unhealthy addiction to boom and bust. And even Gord Follett, he's associated with Newfoundland Sportsman. He stood up and he has a YouTube video out, Wind Turbine Destruction, and he discusses, there's no amount of jobs that's worth the destruction that's coming with these projects. So there's a lot going on there. People got to go down that rabbit hole and ask those hard questions, especially during election time. There's one time that you got something that these politicians want, and that's your vote. So keep asking the hard questions and learn from what's happening on the Burin Peninsula. These people on the Energy Board are pushing ahead with their own agendas, but the people are saying no. The evidence is there. 82% is saying no. So I'm just so happy to see this brave woman writing that letter, and the people continuing to make sure their voices are heard, because their lives are going to be impacted forever if these mega projects proceed.
Yeah, I mean, the density with which some of these proposals include, when compared to other wind farms. And, for me, it's, people lean in on the issue regarding green hydrogen, the export market via ammonia, when the vast majority of people, I think, are more worried about the environmental footprint domestically. So I get it. And the size of the turbines that are being discussed here, they don't belong in the same conversation as the turbines St. Lawrence or in Ramia or up the Southern Shore. It's a different beast altogether. together. So it's as fundamental as that. The only reason I asked about whether or not Everwind was actually doing anything at this moment in time, because I might be wrong, but I think the only proponent that's been released from its environmental assessment is World Energy GH2. And on their front, this is not me saying it, this is John Risley saying it, they're even examining the potential for Plan B. And that's those bloody AI centers, the data centers, because, again, their words, they were proceeding until they could secure a minimum 10-year power purchase agreement, which obviously they have not been able to secure. We got MOUs signed with the Port of Rotterdam, Port of Amsterdam, and the offload infrastructure is not even a thing in Germany at this moment in time. So it kind of looks really, really stalled at this point. Might it proceed into the future? Maybe. Is it worth keeping the conversation go? Of course it is.
Well, so this is where I can't seem to get a straight answer, because I go down. Well, so there, World Energy GH2 is approved, so they got access to the land now for, I can't find how long the lease is, but 30 to 35 years. I don't know if somebody could find that. But do they still have access to the land while they're trying to figure this out?
They've got some pre-feasibility work that has been approved, is my understanding, but the Crown land lease was job-specific. It wasn't for anything but the plan to, use the Port of Stephenville, the electrolysis to move it into green hydrogen, to then blend it with the ammonia for transfer. There's only land lease specific. So unless it's for that, then they have to go back to the drawing board. And I've asked that question of government in the past. It can't be just, we sign a lease on Crown land, we do whatever the heck we want. That's not how it works at all, and thankfully so. But now, there's also plenty of Crown land lease fees that remain unpaid at this moment in time, and that's across the board for the different proponents. It's a bit different at the Port of Argentia with Pattern Energy, because their first phase is not on Crown land, so that's their own kind of separate conversation, so to speak. But no, you can't do what they were talking about doing unless it's for the specific project that they applied under. Anything else quickly, Brenda, before I have to get to the news?
Well, I guess I'll throw one more thing out there that people can think about, because
quickly,
when they talk about World Energy GH2, they're saying how, they were very deceiving in the beginning, and there's concerns that they're still on the land, but now they're exploring for minerals. And I think people kind of they got that in the back of their heads. So, they can say they're there for wind towers, but there's concerns about the minerals that's involved with all of those Crown lands. But that's something for people to chew on. But thanks for all your time there today.
Appreciate yours. Thanks, Brenda.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in for the 11 o'clock news. When we come back, the topic is entirely up to you. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Well, one thing you can bet on is when disaster strikes, the arts community is there to stand up, to bring awareness, to raise some funds. And in this case, we're talking about the music community. So here we go with We Stand on Guard, round number 3. This one's called We Stand on Guard once more. Joining us on line number 1 is the lead singer of Shanneyganock. That's our buddy Chrissy Andrews. And good morning, Chris. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you to this fine fall day?
Top shelf today. How about you?
Excellent. Not too bad, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to do it. And like I said in that very quick intro, you can bet your check that when the times get down to the brass tacks, we need to raise some money, crowd in the music business, they're always there. I mean, every single time, yourself included, Chris. So tell us about what's going on with this particular fundraising concert.
Well, this fundraising concert will be for the wildfire fund. Of course, everyone knows about the wildfires we had this past summer and how devastating they were to many areas. So we decided that we would have a concert to raise some much-needed funds, but an awareness and a show of support for those people who were affected by those wildfires. And the show is November the 10th, and it's going to be broadcast, of course, on VOCM and the Stingray VOCM and Big Land and other media outlets. And we're going to have a night of Newfoundland and Labrador traditional music and, of course, a night to celebrate our pride of being from Newfoundland and Labrador, and as we do, it help out our fellow Newfoundland Labradorians. And
I mentioned it's round 3 because the group came together for Igor, then came together again on the aftermath of Fiona, and here we go with the wildfires. So, I mean, it's kind of a basic question, but why do you do it, and why do you think the arts community are so quick to say yes to these invitations?
Well, I'm a spokesperson for a committee that takes this on every year, professionals in different industries and stuff, and we just feel like it's a good way to give back. And I know musicians and entertainers and artists, and we feel like anything we can do to help our fellow Newfoundland Labradorians, we'll always be there.
Let's name drop a few acts that are going to be performing at the We Stand On Guard once more.
I can do that for sure. Buddy Watts' name and the other fellas, Newfoundland icons. The Fables are going to get back together and play for this. The Ennis Sisters, the Masterless Men, Rum Ragged, Carla Pilgrim and Jackie Sullivan, the Ones, the Navigators, the Celtic Connection, the Punters, and Shanny will be there with our good friend, Newfoundland icon Bud Davies. So it'll be a great night of music.
Music and friends, baby.
Yes, sir.
So this is a personal question, Chris, and feel free to dodge it or put it back to me. But, you say Shanny's going to be there. The Shanneyganock world was upended in May this year when our good buddy Mark Hiscock passed. What does it mean for the band?
Well, it's, Mark is not replaceable. We miss him every day, but as we know, he would have wanted, and we're forging forward, and we have a new young accordion player with us. Of course, like I say, Mark's not replaceable, but he stepped in and doing a grand job. And, I've heard people say he'll never be the same, and they're right. It won't ever be the same. Mark was a powerful force in many ways. But it's still a fun show, and it's still a good time. So we've been having great crowds, and everybody's been enjoying it. So it is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I only ask it because I was hoping for that exact answer, that Mark would have wanted it, and the band needs to keep pushing ahead. So that's the good news when we talk about such a somber loss and what they call like a hole punched in the music community here in the province. Really still super sad stuff. Chris, I think it's at Jag Sound House. What other details people need to know? Price of tickets, when they can get them, that kind of stuff.
Exactly, Patty. The tickets go on sale today at 12 o'clock and at www.jagsoundhouse.ca. And the tickets are $75 all included. So that includes your taxes and your fees. So it's just $75. And you'll be supporting a great cause and get a great night of music out of it.
Good on you, Chris. Appreciate your time this morning. Break a leg.
Thank you so much, Patty.
Happy to do it, pal. Bye-bye. It's Chris Andrews, of course, lead singer Shanneyganock, and we stand on guard once more. Sometimes you maybe dovetail some of these conversations in, like I hear in certain corners where, grants for the arts community, whether it be through Music NL or whatever the case may be, tax credits in the TV film business. And people say if your business model doesn't stand on its own 2 feet, then it needs to go by the wayside. But at the exact same time, the arts community are pretty solid across the board when it comes to, doing things like this. Whether it be arts shows and the money raised therein, or these traditional music concerts, whatever the case may be. And it's worth pointing out and reminding folks, the arts is actually a significant contributor to the economy. It is. I used to be pretty popular pushback when we talked about tax credits in the TV and film business. But lo and behold, because of it, we have the world like Disney coming to town. We got productions that create hundreds of good paying jobs here. And as a result, we have a professionally trained, ready to go TV film crew. So on top of the rugged beauty and the tax credits, we've actually got a crew. And that's pretty important stuff when some of these big productions are looking for a place to film, whether it be in TV and or film, because bringing your own crew because you don't have an up-to-grade, professionally trained crew is a deal breaker for some of these big companies. But when you've got it here and we can put their CV in front of the Disneys of the world and whoever else, then, of course, it makes it even more attractive. And consequently, it's working. It is really working. There's a really active arts community here in the world of TV and film, and there's a bunch of reasons why. Let's check in on the Twitter box. And I'm sure that'll be a roaring success and a full sellout out at the Jag Sound House. On top of that, have you ever been to the new Jag? The new Jag Sound House in particular? It is an incredible venue. And so if you haven't been, this might be a good opportunity, not only to help raise funds for those who are trying to rebuild in the aftermath of the devastating wildfires, but you'll get a chance to see a really cool room with absolutely brilliant sound, great surroundings. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, I see a caller there in the queue getting organized with our producer, Dave Williams. The topic, we're still not really sure. Just one reminder, though. While we're stuck in the thrust of the campaign in the final full week of campaigning here in the provincial election, even if it's not a direct campaign-related conversation, we're happy to have it here. You know, we may indeed hear from some more candidates throughout the course of the week. If you'd like to plant some seeds of questions for one party or another, one leader or another, I'm absolutely happy to try to incorporate them when we get a chance to speak with them. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, plenty of show left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2, segment to the PC candidate running out in the voting district of Mount Pearl North. That's Jim Lester. Good morning, Jim. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thanks for the opportunity to get on the air.
Happy to have you on. Where would you like to start?
Well, I was hoping to get on Friday, and there's a topic that you were speaking on regarding backyard farming and home food production. And I know it's not really of a political nature, but being a farmer, I couldn't resist wanting to speak on that. And imagine if everybody grew a garden the size of their kitchen table. That would basically double the agricultural and food production in our province. And, I'll always say that gardening is a fantastic activity. Well, foremost, it provides us with healthy, nutritious food. Secondly, it provides us with exercise, which most of us can do with extra. And it just provides a great way to spend some time with your friends and family, or even if, you want some own time of self-reflection, gardening can provide all that. And, I think in the Second World War, Winston Churchill had an initiative called the Victory Gardens, and that's something that we should almost be looking at, and restoring our own food supply is a big thing, because we're the last place in North America to get food. So if there's a logistics issue, or maybe it's going to be a shortage of supply, we're going to be the first ones here in this province to see it.
It's amazing that you went to British Victory Gardens. It's a good analogy. Considering the fact that municipalities here are basically governing their decisions regarding backyard farms or homesteading based on British law from 1947. So when I make reference to it, Helen, one of the listeners, sent kind of a concerned tweet about my thoughts on it. And I'm not suggesting that, you should be able to, in residential neighborhoods, have a bunch of sheep or cattle or pigs or whatever in the backyard, but just modernizing our approach to it, because that changes mindset when we just have a bit more of a modern thought. And the Victory Gardens, that's really quite something. So the British government pretty took the bull by the horns on that front. They actually did the planting in community gardens. They actually were willing to do the planting using resources for the military to put the garden in your backyard.
Yeah, and we can modernize that concept and turn it into maybe like a tool shed bank, because not everybody really wants to afford a rototiller or any specialized tool that they may need to get their garden ready in the spring, and because it can be quite expensive not only to purchase but to maintain. But if we could have community tool banks where people, just like a library book, you'd sign in, sign out, and that will go a long way to help people getting started.
Absolutely, and if I'm not mistaken, now you got me all consumed with Victory Gardens. They actually sort of the origin of vertical farming too, and they also put rooftop gardens in place and all the rest of it. Real focus on high yield crops. I'm going to have to read about that this afternoon because I'm weird like that.
No, well, it's good that we're concerned about food production, because, without food, nothing else really matters. And that's something that, as I said, we're the last place in North America to get food, and it's not a matter if, it's more when we're going to see a shortage or logistical disruption, and, we're going to be, down to the last potato in the bin.
Yeah, clean air, clean water, and healthy food. Three Absolutely. Pretty important linchpins. Jim, I'm going to let you talk about whatever you want, but wasn't there a mascot for the Victory Gardens? Like a carrot or something?
Paddy, it probably very well was, but to my knowledge, I can't. To my reflection, I can't remember what it was.
Sorry to derail it, go down that rabbit hole, but what else are we talking about this morning, Jim?
I'd just say basically what we're hearing at the doors, Paddy. I'm knocking the doors, and this is my fourth time knocking in Mount Pearl North. And in doing so, there is a big demographic change. We're seeing a lot of the older neighborhoods are now being, rejuvenated with younger families, new Canadians, and the initial residents of Mount Pearl are, going on to their final stages of life or to a smaller unit or whatever it may be. But one of the big things that I'm hearing at the doors is the deal with Hydro-Quebec and our province. And, everybody seems to have a conception of it, But because the details, what we're given and shown so far, is just a sales package on the project, they're weary of the details. And in what I've taken from that, it's not about the revenue, because in this province, revenue has never been a problem. We've always got lots of revenue coming in per person into the province. It's what we do with it and where it's actually going. Unfortunately, our resources have for far too long been looked at as a commodity to sell for government revenue versus a component of an active economy. Because, as I said, money's not our problem. Working people with money is our problem. When people are working, they're spending in a sustainable economy. It has to be a long-term use of and maximization of that resource. And, people are wary about the extended 50-year term. Would you get a 50-year mortgage? Probably not. Would you look at selling your car to one customer only, or are you going to advertise it? We need to look at all our options on this to maximize this resource. But
the term is one thing. Like if I was in the energy business and I was the CEO of, Power Advisory, I'm not going to get engaged in building a $20 billion dam and associated transmission lines with a short term. So I think the term is curious, but I don't imagine we'd be entertaining anything shorter than 50 years. Look no further than Muskrat, whether that be for amortization and or for power purchase, of which I am the sole customer. On the MOU, so like when people talk to me about it and I ask them what they think about one facet or another, and they give me their opinion, and then I just simply ask, did you happen to read the MOU? At least 50% haven't. And I would imagine a lot of people with very strong feelings about the MOU have not read it. Now, it's not easily digestible at every single turn, but we've got an awful lot of feelings being shared about something that people actually haven't read.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read the MOU, and the revenue side of it is fairly well explained. But what I'm concerned about is our access to future power. Because if you don't have additional power resources, and as you may be well aware, in certain times of the year here on the island of Newfoundland, we're using 85% of our generation capacity. So that's why when you look at these data banks and data relay centers, which we're in a prime situation for, or any manufacturing or value added of our processing of our resources, we can't commit to it because we don't have the power. We don't have a sustainable power bank. But if you look at some of the potential of taking power from the Churchill or Gull Island or whatever it may be, and diverting it here to our own use in our own province, be it Labrador or the island, it could really create a sustainable industry, because like these construction jobs, while they're great, they're only for a short period. And a gentleman said to me the other day, he said, it's like this, I'll get 5 years work and I get a 7-year truck payment and a 20-year mortgage. What do I do then? Yeah.
Insofar as opportunities in Labrador, like I have been pretty clear that I think chasing artificial intelligence data centers is not a really valuable use of the power. But for people in Labrador, they'll tell me that one of the key features of the MOU is the quadrupling of the Labrador recall block, which happens right away. We're not talking about building Gull or any of that kind of stuff. So going from 300 megawatts to 1,200 for expansion in Lab West is for them, and I'm not speaking from my own personal perspective, folks in Labrador are clearly telling me that's one of the things they like the most here. All this, whether it be third transmission line into Lab West, but that recall block expansion, that's an important part of this up in the Big Land.
It absolutely is, because right now, despite the abundance of resource, there's a good portion of Labrador, even in the industrial areas, that are still relying on other forms of power generation. So this is, so much of that 4-time recall is not going to be for expansion. It's only for the maintenance and replacement of other alternative forms of generation. And, back to the 50-year term, we, as our economy and as our people, transition from hydrocarbon consumption for energy to electricity, even here on the island, we're going to need substantially more just for basic everyday use. That's what I'm concerned, and that's what I want to see clarification on. Is there going to be power available for future generations?
Short answer is not much. because even with the expansion at the Upper Churchill, not a whole lot of that beyond the quadrupling the Labrador recall block is going to make its way to the island, as far as I can tell. Gull Island, with its 2,225 megawatts, we only have access to what's ever left over after 2,000. First 2,000 go to Hydro-Quebec. So the short answer is no, not a whole lot. Hydro's been going through this exercise for quite a long time now, and they pretty much have landed on some sort of alternative fuel combustion turbine, 150 megawatts at Holyrood, and then the 8th unit at Bay d'Espoir, or that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, the MOU doesn't provide a whole lot of power outside the aforementioned recall block.
Yeah, so that's where I see that the question should be asked. Myself and you, we may not see an issue of shortage of power in the future, but our children, our grandchildren, they'll be adults in this 50-year term, and that's where we have to look out for. I mean, it's not about finances of today; it's about the legacy that we're going to leave for future generations.
Yeah, and technology is changing pretty quickly here too, and the cost of alternatives is coming way back to earth versus what it was even just some short 5 years ago. So you're right, nobody's got a crystal ball with price elasticity in markets and inflation and different alternative sources of generation, but all need to be part of this discussion, of course, because 50 years, it might feel like a long time away, but it's not really, So anyway, Jim, anything else you'd like to offer while we have you?
Yeah, just other issues that I'm hearing at the doors, of course, the increase in crime, the increase in cost of living, the situation with our health care, not enough access to and not timely access to. And, all these issues are basically guided by public policy. And public policy, of course, is initiated, debated, and legislated by our elected officials. So, when you see politicians out, champion the deliverance of charity, I personally got a big issue with that, because that's a failure of public policy when people have to depend on charity for basic needs. The job of an elected official is to either provide an environment, legislate public policy to provide an environment where people can provide for themselves, or if for whatever reason they're unable to, the programs have to be in place so they don't have to depend on charity for basic needs. And that all goes to the theory of in politics there's game players and game changers, and we need to elect more game changers so that we can really change the direction of our province.
Yeah, I mean, if we took charities, not-for-profits, and volunteers out of the equation, government would be hooped.
Yeah, it would be hooped, but that's largely a failure of progressive policy.
Oh, no argument here. Just pointing out what I think is the obvious, unfortunate facts on the ground. Jim, final thoughts to you before I get to the newscast. I'm a bit late.
Yeah, okay. Well, one of the things that we've always heard every politician say is, we're in a pivotal time in our history. And the tragic thing is, government over government, they've never pivoted. They've kept doing the same thing. And I can guarantee you, when I'm re-elected as part of the Tony Wakeham government, we'll definitely pivot and put this province on the right direction.
Appreciate the time, Jim. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's get to the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the program, and having a conversation with Brenda Kitchen with Protect NL a little bit earlier in the program. Apparently it was untoward that I asked her if there was actually any activity at the Everwind site. The only question is that whether or not being released for an environmental assessment has also seen actual activity on site where they're yet to be fully approved. I know we had that conversation out on the West Coast or on the Port Peninsula when they were doing some meteorological tower construction for wind measurements and what have you, associated with World Energy GH2. So it wasn't dismissing the concerns. In fact, it was the very opposite. We were talking about exactly what's going on where people live. I can't tell what's happening out in Botwood or down for the association with the Everwind project, just asking for people who are actually down there. Let's go to line number 2 and say good morning to the president of the Geraldine Rubia Centre. That's Gary Furlong. Good morning, Gary. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you doing today?
Couldn't be better this morning. How about you?
Good to hear. Glad the Blue Jays won yesterday.
Me too.
Loved it. That's the reason why I'm calling. As you probably know, I was on the news media last week, I guess with reference to the disability liaison person for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I guess I kind of got interviewed by a number of outlets such as VOCM. And yeah, we definitely do here at the Rubia Centre definitely have some concern about not having any representation in the House of Assembly for all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians with disabilities here in the province. And I'm hoping, whether it's the PC, NDP, or the Liberal Party, whoever gets in, that they actually stick to what they're going to say and hopefully have it all carved in stone. So if we do have any issues here, such as we do here at the Germany Rubia Centre, we can actually contact somebody and kind of cut the red tape that's unnecessary to solve an issue.
Yeah, and to get somebody to be your champion as opposed to trying to get time with the minister. I totally get this. Gary, a couple of questions. So Mr. Wakeham has talked about appointing someone to the position as soon as possible, a $400,000 budget in year number one. The Premier, a little bit different. You know, he said it's something we can and should do in short order, but also talked about trying to determine what the office's mandate would be. Any thoughts on the mandate for this, what eventually is definitely going to be a disability advocate position?
Well, the mandate, I guess, speaking on our centre, would be the importance of making sure that, I guess, when we do call the office looking for some kind of support, whether it's for financial support or some kind of mental support, whatever it be, that I guess it will be addressed, and it would be addressed almost immediately, without having to go through the formalities of the red tapes and the bureaucracy. That's just my opinion on it. I think that things can be handled. You know, when people are dealing with issues here in the province, you know, with disabilities, you know, if we have a representative, we can actually go to that person and say, listen, here we have an issue, or we have a problem, or we have a suggestion. Here's what we suggest we can do. Like, I just feel that we definitely need one here in the province. But I tell you what is disappointing, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the Rubia Centre, I'm just speaking on behalf of a voter here in the province. I want to speak a little bit about Jamie Corrett. And the reason why I do want to speak about him, because about 4 or 5 months ago, I actually called Jamie's office. And I asked Jamie's office if we could probably get a grant or funds for a mini split or mini splits here for the Germany Rubia Centre in Shaw Street. His office, first of all, said to me, where is the Germany Rubia Centre? And I said, you got to be kidding, right? Because it's in Jamie Corrad's district. They didn't even know what a Rubia Centre is too. So that alone there kind of showed me the lack of support that we were getting from the government, whether it's Liberals, PCs, but I'm just giving an example. This is what I had to deal with when they said, we're not sure what a Rubia Centre is to. And I said, well, it's in Jamie's district. Why wouldn't you know?
Fair question. Gary, what kind of core funding do you get from the government, if any?
To be honest with you, over the last 10 years since I've been involved with the Germany Rubia Centre, I would say a maximum of maybe $5,000 or $6,000, maybe.
A year?
Maybe. No, that was in total. In total.
Oh.
In total. And our centre is, like the provincial government, and they are definitely aware of the Rubia Centre now, besides Jamie Corrad, but anyway, that's another story. But they know about the Rubia Centre, especially when it comes to social workers. They promote, you know, drop down to the Germany Rubia Centre if you have an adult with special needs. So that alone there speaks volumes. But as for funding, our centre is run 100% by volunteers, and the only way that we survive is through our takeout lunches here that we offer 2 to 3 times a week, and our rentals on the weekends. But as for government funding from the federal, provincial, very, very, very little.
That's remarkable.
And there's not one person inside our centre that is on the board that's paid a dime to run this centre. I love doing it because I love giving back to the community, and I know that the special needs a centre like ours so they can come down and have activities and programs Monday to Friday and be with their own special needs in our community.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a third of the population that is in the disabled community, it's remarkable that we're still talking about here in 2025 the need for an advocate. We're quick to we're quick to have one for the children and youth. We're quick to have one for seniors. We're quick to have one as a citizens representative. But a full third of the population does not have that champion in their corner, and they deserve it.
Not only that, but for the last 10 years, I guess the government had been saying that they were going to bring one in, but they still didn't come to light. Well, not only that, but when I did speak to Jamie Coyle's office, apparently he was the Minister of Disabilities at the time, and they didn't know that our centre was here in his district. It's like, I was so frustrated and so disappointed. You say, are you got to be joking, right? You got to be kidding. You don't know where the Germany and Ruby Centre's to. No, sir, I'm not really 100% sure where it's to. It's in his district. You should know. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they should know. I don't know. But I think I was kind of taken back by, like, you don't know where it was to? Anyway, maybe it's just me. But anyway, Teddy, I want to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the clients and the workers that come to the Geraldine Rubio Centre on Saw Street. You have a great day, and God bless.
The very same to you. Stay in touch, Gary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's see here. Quick check on the Twitter box. You know what to do. We're VOCM Open Line. Emails are flying fast and furious at openline@vocm.com. My favorite is when you join us live on the air, just like you can right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Ruby. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you this morning?
I'm doing okay, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. A little bit sorry, but I'll be okay. I have a question. My question is, I don't know if you can answer me or if someone in the public can answer me. I'm not going to name anybody, but if a party, for example, whether it be NDP, Liberal, PC, it doesn't matter, have a candidate that's been now questioned by the RCMP because of a crime they may have committed or may not have, are they allowed to be on the ballot?
The short answer is yes. You know, until the basic school of thought is, unless you've been convicted of a crime, whether it be related to politics or otherwise, it's hard to tell that person that they cannot be involved as a candidate. I would assume now that the party has lots of options available to them, if they think it's a problem inside their own party ranks, they can disqualify a candidate. I mean, when they vet candidates, you can be disqualified for a variety of reasons. But insofar as the general public, until someone's been convicted of something, it's hard to tell them that they can't run. I suppose that would be the general thoughts.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I just wanted the answer. I'm not going to get into it because I'm sure there are plenty know what it is I'm talking about. Anyway,
I know.
You don't.
I do. I do know. I know
do.
exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. So you know why I'm asking the question, because if he's still on the ballot and he has a record, or he's something to have a record, because apparently there are more than one issue at stake here. Not only the issue with the Elections Canada, but with other as well. But anyway, I'll leave it at that for now, and hopefully it'll come out in the wash.
Yeah, and that's another thing is, like, sometimes even if there's an investigation or there's not, like, it's really difficult for me to get any information from law enforcement that actually acknowledges an investigation, because they don't really owe the public anything until they go to lay charges. Then it becomes public record, right? So what you're talking about, I've had a look around. I'm having a hard time even confirming if there's an actual active investigation, because being asked the question by the police doesn't necessarily even constitute an investigation being conducted. But I'd love to know, because some of what I read is like, oh boy, we better get to the bottom of this.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and it's coming from more than one angle, as you know. If you read it, you read what I read.
Yep.
And there is more than one accusation here. And I'll call it an accusation because until it's proven guilty, I guess, or innocent, whatever the case might be, it is an accusation. But it's a serious one, and where is the election committee, or where is the party that's involved here, that they haven't asked them to step down till the investigation is completed?
I guess it's curious timing, and I've been asked why I haven't mentioned it, but I think that I owe to candidates and the listeners to be pretty careful with throwing out allegations of criminal wrongdoing when we have no earthly idea if there's any merit to it at all. So I'm following along the best I can to see how this unfolds, but I'm not going to be throwing individual candidates under buses that I don't know who's driving them or why they're driving them. So I know that's why you're being careful here as well this morning, because the worst thing I could possibly do is to throw out unfounded accusations at one candidate or another. It's not fair. It's not fair to the process itself, and it's very likely just going to get me in nothing but trouble when I don't have all the facts. So I know what you're talking about, Ruby. I'll keep trying to follow along with what's going on. I think I probably should put it to the party executive about if they can fill me in about what they know and their stance on it, because that'd be probably a good starting point, because law enforcement is not going to tell me anything.
No, and you're correct. I've been involved politically all my life. I worked inside those walls, and I know what I was allowed to do. I never ran publicly, but I sat from an executive assistant to working with the minister. And I know darn well that we had to tread on very fine soil of what you were allowed to do and what you weren't allowed to do. And if this party delegate or candidate, whatever we want to call him, is been investigated, and is there any truth to what we have heard and read? I have read the facts from a bank statement to whatever. I don't know if it's true. I'm asking if anyone out there can give us the proof that it's true. If so, this person should not be on the ballot.
Yeah, and let's just say, for instance, if this person gets elected and it comes out in the wash that what I've heard is actually true, then that person will inevitably be removed from office. But at that point, of course, then we're just going to have to suffer the cost of a by-election and what have you. But, and this is not about this one particular issue, because people have sent me lots of stuff that when I dig a little further, it's pretty easily proven not to be true. Because I can mock up something that looks like a hydro bill as much as I can something that looks like a bank statement. And this is not about this case specific. It's just that people feed me lots of stuff that when I take the time to try and figure it out, sometimes, and sometimes more often than not, it turns out to be bogus. So I'll go to the party and see what they think and get some idea of what they know about what's going on, because I'm going to proceed with a dollop of caution just to be fair.
And that's fair enough, Patty. I agree with you. And that's like me. I'm not going to come out and accuse anybody until I know, are they investigated? That was my question. Can somebody prove that they are being investigated? And is there some truth to what I've read? That's what I'm asking. And I don't care what party you're from, you need to resign.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I know where you're coming from, Ruby. Leave it with me. I'll get a comment from the party, because they obviously know what's going on. If someone was willing to send information to me, full well they sent it to the party.
Of course they did. And that's why I'm wondering why the party has not... this got put public. It's public. It's all over Facebook. It's all over, and we know what Facebook is, but it's all over there. Everybody knows it, but nobody can prove it.
Yeah, let's see if I can get a little bit more information that might make it a little bit clearer for me and for you and for everybody else. And I appreciate your time this morning, Ruby.
Thank you very, very much, Patty,
You're
and
welcome.
you have a wonderful day. For the rest, that's left.
Same to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see here. Final words, probably line number 2. Michael, you're on the air.
Hi there, Patty.
Hi.
Greetings from Idaho. We got just a minute here. It's 8:30 Mountain Time, and they let us come in a little later today instead of 7 a.m., 10 a.m. because it was supposed to snow this morning. First of the year, that's typical for East Idaho. It can be long winters, very cold, and I got 4 of the 8 guys I've been working with 16 hours a day sometimes the last 3.5, 4 weeks, and they all want to say, hello, guys. Okay, hombres.
From
Viva
Idaho.
Mexico, something like that. Mexico. Yeah, saludos from Idaho.
So
Buenos dias.
you guys listen to the show from Idaho?
All right. Can you hear that? Hear these guys talking?
I can hear the guys talking.
Okay. I thought that just might be something fun to end your show with here. And I'm going to go see my ailing dad in Boise, Idaho later this week with harvest. Well, hopefully done today. Tomorrow, a big farewell party. And some of these guys go back to Mexico. Some have permission to work other jobs here. Everybody's different. So I don't know. Do you guys have overtime laws, an exemption on overtime pay in agriculture? Because we do here. Because you couldn't afford to pay time and a half, 16 hours a day. That'd be put the farmers out of business.
Yeah.
And your guy told me you do grow potatoes in Newfoundland. That's good.
Lots of them. And we know that's one of the backbones of Idaho. I've actually been to Boise. Idaho's beautiful. Yeah, Boise is a beautiful city.
Absolutely. I spent 6 years of my childhood there, and it's always fun to visit. I normally live in Las Vegas, but then I have a mother in Oregon, so do it all in one big trip here this coming month.
Yeah, I'm not sure the name of the community, but we were playing golf on the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail, and one of the courses was in Idaho, just outside of Boise. Can't remember the name of the town.
Yeah, it was probably Eagle. They have some golf courses out there on the west side of town.
Yeah, Michael, say hello to the crew for me. I appreciate your time this morning.
All right. Glad I was able to get in really quick there.
Yeah, me too, man. All the best.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello from Idaho. Hey, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on Big Land FM, on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.